Hello, viewers. This is Niloy Chattaraj, welcoming once again all of you in Transcontinental Times 360-degree live show. As you know it, we are bringing the extraordinary people from the various fields on every week on our show. Today, we have on our show a guest who is an actress, turned banker, turned media person, turned geopolitical expert. She is an American Indian. She is Preity Upala. She is a former investment banker turned thought leader and a media personality based in Hollywood, California. She has a lot of achievements, but she hosts a popular show called The Pretty Experience and is a much sought after radio and TV commentator around the world. She is also a former Miss India International. She has worked for 4 continents, including Bollywood, Hollywood, and is currently developing a show for the Hollywood show. Pretty, welcome to the show.
Namaste, Niloy ji. Thank you so much for having me on your amazing platform. It is a pleasure to be on your show.
Yes, it's our pleasure too. And it's nice to see you. My first impression on seeing you that you are a very perfect material for James Bond movies. Have you got any of the offer from Hollywood?
You're very sweet. You're not the first one. I've had a lot of people say this. So how casting works is, they needs to be a character that would look and sound like me in the James Bond movie. Could be the Bond girl or not or someone else. And then you audition for it, and then obviously you get, if you get the role, that's yours. So there's a process, unfortunately. But look, I believe in divine timing. I think at the right time, everything unfolds. COVID stopped the industry quite severely, but things will eventually come back, and shooting and casting will continue. So you never know. I mean, a future Bond movie, I might be your gal. So let's hope that that happens.
That will be a wonderful opportunity for all of us to see you in the Bond movie. Uh,
Yes.
uh, let's begin with your own career. And please tell our viewers about your own story, about your own struggles and triumphs, how it all began.
Wow. Great question. Thank you for the opportunity to share. For me, I am an investment banker from Sydney, Australia, who now lives in Los Angeles, California, and I'm involved in media, entertainment, and politics. So I've completely come, I guess, 180 degrees. I've traveled the world. I've seen a lot. Gave up the corporate world, won a scholarship to study in America, and that's what brought me out here several years ago. And now this is home. But I do many things. I speak around the world. I'm writing my first book. Obviously, I have my own show, as you mentioned, the Preity Experience, which is quite consuming and also doing very well. And I write for many publications, and I'm a very, like, I guess, a busy TV and radio commentator all around the world. And then on top of that, I'm a brand ambassador for various lifestyle brands, and also a Dharma ambassador. I write and speak about Dharma, Indian philosophy, Indian tradition, and the foundation of everything I do is definitely spirituality. So my life is very busy. It's very colorful. It looks like a dream, but it's taken a lot of sacrifice, a lot of courage, a lot of guts to, I think, follow the road less traveled. And most people would not opt for the path that I've chosen. But I backed myself. I knew I would make it. I was willing to leave everything behind in pursuit of a dream. So with huge risk, there is huge reward. And I know that me living my dream life here in California is the reward in itself, and everything else is icing on the cake. So it's been quite a journey, and I'm very, very grateful for it.
So it all began in Australia, right? You were
Yes.
born and brought up in Australia, and then
No, I
you
was
might.
born and brought up in Dubai in the Middle East. So
Oh,
quite a culture shock, I guess. Lived there for 15 years all around the Middle East and then moved to Europe briefly, then moved to Australia. So,
so
I'm
you have taken the graduation from Australia itself.
yes, my my 12th grade high school, I guess, and my university education was in Australia. So for sure. And
Okay.
I'm very grateful because they have incredible education system, especially university education.
Mhm. So you have traveled a lot. You're from one continent and to another continent, and then finally to the American continent. Uh, how did you look the life when you move from one continent to another continent? How the situation and how the people and how the all culture changes from one place to another? How did you cope up with all these things?
Well, I personally didn't have any problem because I grew up traveling a lot ever since I was a baby. I think I was probably 6 months old when I was on a plane for the first time. So my father he traveled a lot for his job. He works in the oil and energy industries as a executive and a project manager, so we always traveled all over, and it's amazing. And I think in the Middle East the way that it's set up is if you have a parent who's traveling, usually they accommodate for the entire family to also move with the parent, even if it's a short while. So we had the privilege of going to all these exotic places when we were very young, and he got to also get transferred here and there. So it was kind of very exciting. But so I've changed schools so many times and so on. So and moved countries too. So I grew up being very flexible. I could get up and go I could move to a place tomorrow, and within a week it would be home. That's just the kind of the capability I have. I'm grateful for it. Not everyone can do that. For me, because it happened at such a young age, forced to adapt, I guess, and be flexible and just, I've always been an outsider. It doesn't affect me, it doesn't phase me. Actually, I think it makes me unique because I go into every situation knowing that, and I've never lived in India, so that's the only place where I wouldn't be an outsider. So, and I don't see myself living there permanently. So I'll always be an outsider no matter where I go, but that's not a bad thing. It makes you unique. It makes you looking at things from outside in. So traveling also opens your eyes. You look at other cultures and people of different faiths, different traditions. What I have learned, having been to 100 countries, I will say, is people are essentially the same. No matter where you go, everybody wants to be loved and respected, understood, heard, valued. And that's a beautiful thing. I think humanity triumphs all our differences. And I think we must never forget that, especially since the world is so divided these days. I think we need to understand we're essentially,
Yes, yes,
ultimately human
yes,
beings.
yes.
We are spiritual beings having a human experience, really. And on top of that, we're just humans. So we
Yes.
have much more in common than different.
A very aptly said. Very aptly said. Very beautifully said. Yes, you have. You carved your own niche throughout your life.
Mm.
But in this male-dominated society, how difficult it was for you, for a single woman, to rise to a level where you are. How difficult it was.
That is such a great question. And I'm glad you asked me that. I do tons of interviews. I've probably done more than 500 in the last few years, I think. And very, very few people have asked me this question. So
It's
it's
my
different.
pleasure.
In media, the male dynamic is different. In politics is different. In entertainment is different, and then finally in sport, which is I'm heavily involved in that. That's also very different. I must say, technology and corporate in Australia and in America is quite different. Because there are so few women in investment banking and in technology. Um, they encourage women, right? So I've always been encouraged. I had great mentors, great colleagues, bosses. There was never any issue there. They promote you, they want more women, they want more young women into the STEM fields and all of that. This is global, even in India, that's the case. So it's actually, in a way, if you happen to be a woman in a male dominated industry, depending on the situation, it could be, you could actually get a lot of support from the men and the women in the industry. So, corporate wise, it was fine. But then when I moved here to LA, it was very different because although Hollywood is male dominated, entertainment industry, all the executives and all of that, it's definitely male dominated. You didn't have the situation that you had in the corporate world where here they're promoting. Yes, there is this push for diversity and inclusion, but it's very different because the decision makers are still men. And and that's fine. I'm all about merit. I'm not a big fan of this identity politics. So I want the right person to get the job. If that happens to be a man, fantastic. If that happens to be a woman, fantastic as well. But you want a world based on merit. Unfortunately, in the industry, there's a lot of tokenism, as well as the people at the top who are actually making the decisions. It's not exactly fair. There is nepotism here, and it is who you know and how well you know them, and so on and so forth. So I think Hollywood still has a long way to go in terms of inclusion and all of that jazz. But the kind of person I am, to carve my own niche anyway, I've done that my whole life. So I will find my way, and I'll put myself in a position where I'm not waiting
Sure,
for some
sure,
person to give me a gig.
sure,
And I don't think in my entire life I've ever competed. Because I'm so unique. Even though I may be, I'll audition for a role, I'm still such a unique brand and a unique person. I'm not just another actor looking for a gig. I am this personality who does so many other things, has their own show, this, that, and the other. Just happened to also be auditioning for a part in a gig, in a project, right? So I have a lot of things going, um, a lot of pots, I guess, warming up, so to speak, which is good. And I'm very fulfilled, and I'm, very uh, empowered in a way. So I've never come to a place in Hollywood where it's desperation or feeling jaded like most people here. But then politics is a different beast. I think politics, in America, they again, they want to have inclusion, but the power makers are, certainly there, it's a lot of men in Congress and in real positions of power. So I think we're sort of changing that. But then there's a lot of women as campaign managers in PR, publicity, press, all that good stuff, media. So it's interesting. And then finally, sport. Now, sport is, I think, the most strange because it's a double whammy, I think, for women in sports, especially in a sport like cricket, which is so male dominated. You have two situations. One, you have most of the fans are all men. They're usually young boys and young men. And then your studio people and the co-hosts, they're all men too. So you got a double whammy here. And it's unfortunately, there are a lot of insecure petty men out there who cannot stand a strong I guess an empowered woman who has something to say, who is knowledgeable, who is popular. They can't bear it, and they will either sideline her or try to silence her, or maybe discredit even her knowledge. I mean, it's so sad, but this actually happens.
This is
So
this is this is very unfortunate. This is very
very
unfortunate.
unfortunate.
Of course,
And
of course.
the saddest thing is when it happened. It's one. It's bad enough in India, in the Indian cricket scene, but when it happens in a non-Indian environment, I think that's even more sad because you don't expect that, right? If the show is whatever, if it's not from India, you just don't expect that level of, I guess, misogyny and sexism. But it's stemming from insecurity and pettiness, I think. And unfortunately, there are far too many people who, they have, uh, that's why they even have these platforms in the first place. It's just, it's like a self-indulgent narcissistic experiment in the guise of being about sports. You when you watch enough sports shows, I think on YouTube and online, you'll get the gist of it. You'll know who is really passionate and who's just wants to be on a soapbox.
Yeah, yeah. Seeing the observing your side of the story, I visualize the period when in Europe, if a woman want to learn math, she has to face an uphill task
Yes,
for admitting in university. The similar thing is happening in cricket, but in India, what I'm seeing, I'm down to at the ground level and up to the district and then to the state level and even in international cricket. I find that women cricket is heading to a very proper direction. No doubt
yes,
about that.
yes.
No doubt about that. Women cricket is properly. And to just enhance that question, I want to know when this interest in your in cricket inside you it grew.
Great question. So for me, obviously, being an Indian, we grew up with it. In Dubai, there's a huge diaspora. Cricket is incredibly popular. We used to get access to all the big tournaments, and they were free to air on television. Everyone used to watch it, as a community neighborhood. And the India-Pakistan matches, especially, were very, very exciting and hot because our neighbors were Pakistani, our best friends were Pakistani, right? So we really lived all everybody lived together, in the community and neighborhood. It was wonderful, great energy, great atmosphere. At that time, Pakistan was extremely a strong side, so
Yeah, yeah,
beating them was not a given. And there were many
yeah,
times when India lost. There were many times when Pakistan was more aggressive, more competitive, played a better
yeah.
style of cricket almost, especially with their pace attack and their fast bowlers, right? And their incredible superstars. So it's been joyful. So, Middle East, definitely I kept watching all the tournaments. I think ODI for me is definitely what I enjoyed the most. And then when I moved to America, they do play and they're getting into minor league cricket here, but cricket is just not it's not the same craze like it is in the rest of the world. And here, obviously, I got used to watching basketball, baseball, American
Baseball.
football,
Yeah,
and
yes,
so
yes.
on, which is all fun anyway. But then recently, with all these big, I mean, then of course we had the 2011 World Cup, which was huge, and then then we had before that we had the T20 World Cup. So when these milestones happened, I it spiked my interest, and then I must say. This year and even just a little bit before, I would say last year, India has been on a roll, doing
Yeah,
incredibly well. And then you had that
yeah.
historic India Australia series. And since then, I think I've been hooked. So for me, I realized, wow, this is quite a niche. And it's a niche where there's very few women who are knowledgeable, who know anything about cricket, and who have the media experience and so on. And I thought, this is really an area that I could add to my repertoire and my brand. And so I extended my brand, the Preity Experience, to include sport and specifically cricket. And it's worked wonderfully. I think I found a place here, and it's just a matter of sort of growing that and really going global, I suppose, and going as far as I can.
Yes, definitely, definitely. Now from cricket to the present condition in India. Now you are living in America, and you are the best position. You are the best position to observe. Uh, I won't say from 2 decades. I will concentrate on the last decades up till now. How you visualize India? The paradigm has been shifted
Yes.
from one government to the another government. How the Indians in America is seeing this shift, whether it is for the good or it is for the bad. Your view.
Great point. Wonderful. Yes, I have a great vantage point here in America. remember Indian Americans have done, they have been doing this for a few decades, but they've done incredibly well for themselves. We are the most educated, wealthiest, and successful group in America, and we should really be proud of that. And we hold all the high positions in all aspects of life and society, including at the very heights of politics. And so Americans, when they think of India and Indians, they actually have a very positive image, unlike maybe other countries. So, and it's a good thing, because I think America is a country where Indians can actually make a big mark globally, and we're doing it. So politically, what I see is this is the first time when I see Indians being proud of being Indians. And for the first time, I see India and Indians being respected globally. So no matter where I go in the world, people, I mean, they've always liked and respected me, but if I bring up India, they have certain views about it, but they're extremely positive views. Everyone says, you got a great government, you got a great leader, you guys are amazing with technology, your military, your economy is growing, it's the rising power. And then, sort of, I think the world is getting growing very nervous around China. It has been even before COVID. There's been a lot of friction between the West and China, right? And people see India as a different kind of rising power, one that's not China. So they are grateful for an India. And I think when they think about Asia, they want an India in power and not a China. So that was happening even before COVID. And then post COVID and during COVID, it's very different. There's a lot of resentment all around the world towards China, towards their leader, even that system of governance. And then, of course, India is the immediate alternative. Now, yes, there is some effort from mainstream media to, I think, tarnish the brand of India. It's very deliberate, I think, and much of it actually comes out of India, where
No, no,
people
no.
were not.
No, no. I would like to just interrupt you because yes, some of the section of the media is no, they are tarnishing because they are against Modi or
Yes,
against the BJP government. That is it.
yes.
But but India is struggling to put a bar on the casteism, struggling to put the bar on the Hindu Muslim divisions. Don't you think that these two topics are now the burning topics in India?
Yeah, but from a global perspective, when you look at the world and all the problems in the world, you have Afghanistan, you've got radical religious terrorism. Look at you got China. I, I'm sorry, but India's issues, the issues that people in India want to make important, don't they pale in comparison. We got much bigger fish to fry, and if you speak to the average American, they're concerned about Afghanistan, they're concerned about oil prices, they're concerned about China, COVID. Their problem isn't India. It's never, so that's good. Even though there is, again, this attempt to, I think, blow things out of proportion and distort it. There are people who want to make these issues like the worst issues on the planet, which they are not. They're far worse. I mean, if it was as bad as it sounds, I think India would be a very different country. It would be, people would be in a very different state. And it's I see, because I have obviously a lot of friends who live there, and the reality is quite different. I will say, with the communal division that you have, it takes two to tango. It's not just one group. It's it's all groups, especially I guess, minority groups also need to coexist with the majority, which isn't, some groups do it better than others. So you can be too demanding of the majority when they by nature are open and inclusive. And then when you have a minority, which by nature is not, then you have to really ask your question, who's creating this division. These are important conversations that need, the somebody needs to educate, I think, the West about this, because they have it quite twisted, I think. And then it helps in, I guess, giving look, you want to criticize uh, for valid things, go ahead. But criticizing things by embellishing them, blowing them, distorting them, I don't respect that, and I don't buy that, and it doesn't work in the end. People are not stupid. They do read, they do research, and now I'm finding that there's nobody. I know there's been so many op-eds in some of these mainstream publications. A lot of Americans don't read them, and their view of
No,
India
no,
is still extremely positive.
you mean to, you no, no, no. You mean to say that the op-ed in Washington Post or in the New York Times are not cared by the American people?
No, you know who reads them? NRIs read them, and even that, most NRIs are very pro-government. I would say, I have to say, majority of Indian Americans, they are Democrats. They will vote. They voted for Biden. However, back home, they're very much pro current government. Absolutely, you have a lot of people who are very pro Modi, and then they like Biden administration too, which is very interesting. Um, they will read that, they'll shun it. Some people will read it, and it's they're happy because that's what they want to read, I guess. But people also know, I mean, their eyes don't fool them. They do, and with investigative journalism and alternative journalism, I think the truth ultimately comes out. So I think India should be rest assured that uh, in the end, it actually has a pretty good standing. I think, our foreign minister has done a pretty good job of recently, I would say.
Now to the burning question, we shift from India to Afghanistan. The happenings which was quite spine chilling and barbaric.
Yes.
Just when I go through the all the media reports and all the live footage, I'm literally tears in my eyes that what human beings we are just
Yep.
witnessing the total collapse of the civilizations and total collapse of the government. So don't you think this is due to America?
So, I mean, I will admit that how America has operated this withdrawal is shambolic, and it's not prepared. It's, they should know better that when they leave abruptly like this, there will be a vacuum. And with Taliban always looking over their shoulder to waiting for that very vacuum, and now it's come prematurely anyway, so they've latched on. They didn't even wait for all of the withdrawal to happen. They just realized it was time to seize the day, so to speak. um, Something very fishy about the whole process, because it seemed a little too quick, too fast to fall so quickly, almost like various parties kind of knew it was going to happen. You have to understand one thing, that there is enormous support for the Taliban within Afghanistan, especially in the rural areas. Maybe not
True,
so much in the urban center, but
true.
much of Afghanistan has always been under the control of the Taliban, and they don't have any issues as such. So, I mean, in fact, some people would say, great, we finally got rid of this puppet government, and we finally got some real leaders in place. That's how a lot of people would see it. So you have to blame ideology. They are not espousing something that is foreign to the Afghan people. This is their faith. It's a version of it, but it's not a version that's not that's like cooked up or anything like that. It's very much part of their sort of ideology. They just choose to exercise that version of it, and a lot of people in Afghanistan did not resist. Yes, people in the urban centers did, and the cities, and of course, people who want a better world, a better Afghanistan, of course they do, but a vast majority don't, right? So it's interesting. So when you look at who to blame, you should also blame this failed Afghan government. You should blame
Yeah,
their
yeah, yeah.
leader. Fled overnight.
I believe that is a failed Afghan government. So
Yes,
there was no plan B for American side, that when if these things happens, because you see the chronology where
yeah,
your earlier presidents were not, they don't want to pull
yes,
their troops back, but this
correct.
government has make a very standing decision that we want to put back our soldiers to America. They are not they are not for other countries on the foreign soil, where more than 3,000 soldiers have been killed. So Biden should be pat at the back, or should be condemned for his hasty withdrawal. What do you think about it?
I think definitely the latter. I mean, it's not his genius decision to withdraw them. Remember, he was very much part of the. He was the vice president when all of this happened, right? Or many years ago, before Trump, before yeah, I mean, during Obama's terms, he was the VP, and he was, foreign policy was supposedly his. He was very much a part of all of this. He very much allied with the Pakistan. He thought Pakistan was going to be a great friend in the fight against terrorism, and they were giving billions to that country, and all that
That
country
didn't
was
that
doing.
didn't happen. That didn't happen. They backstabbed America. No
Absolutely,
doubt
they
about that.
supported and hoarded. I mean, they supported and harbored terrorism. I mean, they gave birth to the Taliban, and they absolutely fueled it. And now that monster that has grown is going to come back, to only bite them. No, I think this administration should have known better. Firstly, you don't withdraw in this way. They were things that they could have done, to put in place, work better with their allies and so on, let people know what's going on. And also, if you're such a powerful country, how come you can't take over the Taliban? I mean, these people are very, very rural. I mean, you're talking about people who live in the mountains. I mean, you've got nukes, you've got the most powerful weapons in the world, and you've got hundreds of thousands of troops at your disposal. You telling me that they didn't fight them because they couldn't, they didn't want to, not because they couldn't. It was a choice, and it was like Taliban was handed Afghanistan on a platter, which they took, because they're obviously, it's their country, and they want full control, and the world is going to pay for it now. I think this is going to affect Biden's the rest of his tenure as president, and I think it's going to seriously affect their chances in 2020. Whatever little chances they have of being reelected, I think it's going to severely be damaged now.
Of course, that's what it seemed from this point. Uh, Now coming back to you, because we have got a full circle. What are your current projects, and what are about your future projects?
Oh, wonderful! Many exciting things. I'm writing a book. It's going to be. I don't want to give away the title or the context, but it is something to do with globalization and sort of the global nature of the world, and how connected we are, and soft power and things like that. So the book is exciting. My show is obviously doing very well. I want to only grow that. Um, Developing a show for Hollywood studios here. It's going to be like a talk show. Excited about that, to pitch it to the right channel and get it picked up. And then hopefully, I'd love to be involved with the upcoming cricket tournaments. Let's see if we can manifest something there in terms of hosting and broadcasting and so on. But I'm working with a spiritual and wellness app, creating some content for them. That's definitely an area that I have a lot of expertise in, and want to do more of. So I mean, it's all very exciting, a lot going on. And I think I keep myself so open, so anything can happen, and there's always magic out there. So there might be a new big exciting project coming my way as well. I should just keep myself open. And I'm getting very much involved in politics here on a local level, joining the National Diversity Coalition, which is a huge organization focused on diversity. It's
Very
huge
good.
in California. They're very powerful. They go visit the White House, so on. So being with them is going to be good. I'm also with the Forbes Business Advisory Committee, so looking to do more with them, and I think only big things will come from that.
Wow. So, with this, I would like to conclude today's episode on our Transcontinental Times 360-degree live show. One I must say that I have experienced a very, a personality who has a diverse understanding of the world, ranging from politics to sports, to women empowerment and whatnot. So all the best from us, and I hope in our future show you will be our guest, and we will discuss more things, hopefully. So with this, viewers, we come to the end of the show. I hope that you like our shows. Please do subscribe our channel, that is Transcontinental Times 360 Live Show. Bye bye.
Thank you, Niloy ji, and thank you to your amazing audience. It was a pleasure to be on your show, and hope to be back soon.
Thank
Dhanyawad.
you.
Jai